Hey everybody, Ross here, and this is Bible Study Superstar. If this is your first time on this channel, click here to go back to the intro, or if you'd like to see what's been happening recently, click here to go back to Genesis 18. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right on into Genesis 19, verse 1. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, "Hear now, my lords, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, and you may rise early and go on your way." And they said, "No, but we will spend the night in the open square." But he insisted strongly, so they turned into him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast, and baked them unleavened bread, and they ate. Now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, surrounded the house. And they called to Lot, and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them carnally." So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind them, and said, "Please, my brother, do not do so wickedly. See now, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof." And they said, "Stand back." Then they said, "This one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands, and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else here? Son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, "Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be joking. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Rise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So it came to pass, when they had brought them outside, that he said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed." Then Lot said to them, "Please, no, my lords. Indeed now, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. See now, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live." And he said to him, "See, I have favored you concerning this thing also, in that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there." Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back behind him and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. Then he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain. And he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. Then Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. Now the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down and when she arose. It happened on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, Indeed, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight also, and you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Then they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son, called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. Alright, now before I get started on my notes, let me just say that there is quite a bit to comment on. And quite honestly, there's a lot of messed up stuff that goes on in this chapter, as I'm sure you've just seen. But anyway, why did Lot so strongly insist that the angel stay at his house instead of allowing them to stay in the open square? Knowing the wickedness of the city, Lot knew that going to the open square, much less staying there all night, was very dangerous. Not only was the open square available to everyone, as the name implies, but everyone in it at night was fair game for the violent homosexuals in the city. It's also possible that travelers through the city did not know of the dangers until it was too late. Now, did Lot somehow know that the 2 men were angels, or did he have some other reason for inviting them into his home? Considering that Lot bowed his face to the ground before them, it seems like there was some indication to him of who they were that no one else could see. Also, judging by the men of the city's reaction to Lot taking them in, it could be safe to assume that Lot didn't take many travelers into his home, if any. Moving on. When the men of Sodom surrounded Lot's house and demanded that they were given the 2 angels, Lot offered his 2 virgin daughters to try and protect the angels. But why did he do this? For one, it's seriously messed up that he even considered giving his own children to such a violent mob. The thing is, though, a house's hospitality meant a great deal in that day, and a lack of it was seen as a great shame on that household. So even though Lot was trying to protect the innocent guests in his house, we can see that he valued his social standing more than his family when he offered his daughters. This also shows that even though Lot was considered righteous enough to save from the city's destruction, he was still adopting at least some of their sinful ways. Because of Lot's defiance, the men of Sodom would have probably killed him in addition to whatever other wickedness they had in mind. God was showing him mercy, though, because the angels were there to pull him back in and blind his attackers. Moving on again. In verse 7, Lot says that his daughters are virgins, but the angels tell him to warn his sons-in-law and bring them out of the city in verse 12. In casually reading, it would be easy to see this as a contradiction and then become confused. Were the two daughters of Lot spoke of virgins or married? Verse 15 lets us know that the sons-in-law were married to Lot's daughters who were not mentioned in verse 7, because Lot was told to take everyone who was currently with him and flee. Now, why did Lot linger when he was so strongly warned to leave? My best guess is that he didn't honestly believe that the city would be destroyed. Maybe he found himself attached to the place, and or the sin he had adopted there. Maybe he was still trying to convince his sons-in-law to join him. Whatever the reason he had, he waited so long that the angels had to remove him, his wife, and his two virgin daughters from the city themselves. Why do you think Lot lingered so long? Let me know in the comments. Alright. When the angels tell Lot to flee to the mountains, he shows his disbelief again by saying that the way was unsafe and that he would die while traveling. If the angels knew that the way wouldn't have been safe for him, why in the world would they tell him to go that way in the first place? Really. Moving on. Why did the angels tell Lot to not look back while the city was being destroyed? To put it simply, they needed to get to their work as quickly as possible, and they couldn't until Lot and his family were safe. That, and I think that this was a literal reminder to us that we should never look back on our old sin with any kind of desire, because all of those things behind us only lead to destruction. Moving on again, we see in verses 27 to 29 that the only reason Lot was saved from the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was because of Abraham's earlier intercession with God. This shows the direct impact our prayers for our family and friends can have on their safety and their salvation. Now, why did Lot's daughters think that there were no more men on the earth that they could marry? Didn't they just leave Zoar? There were probably plenty of eligible men there, even though it was a small village. My best guess is that after Lot and his daughters left Zoar, the two angels came and destroyed it as well, as it seemed their intention to before Lot asked to flee there. Because of that, Lot's daughters likely thought that the entire world was being destroyed in the same way as Sodom and Gomorrah. With that assumption, their choice to sleep with their father was probably made to try and preserve the human race. Nevertheless, their choice was still wrong because they actually knew better. They were present when the angels specifically said that the cities of the plain were to be destroyed, not the cities of the world. And finally, Lot was also in the wrong, because even though he was so drunk he couldn't remember sleeping with his daughters, he chose to start drinking in the first place instead of seeking after God. Had he remained sober and sought after God, this would have likely never happened. And that's all I have for today. That was kind of a long video here today, but anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, feedback, or suggestions, leave them below in a video response or in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all soon in Genesis 20.